Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Steve Fretzin, and this is a very, very special show today, everybody. Be That Lawyer, 500 episodes. We started over 5 years ago. We have had some of the most incredible rainmakers, legal experts, and today we are so blessed to have John Morgan here with us today for number 500. John, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for
Talking
having
to
me.
yeah, talking to us from Hawaii, and I'm here in cold Chicago, miserable, and thinking about how happy you must be every day.
Every day.
Well, beautiful, beautiful. Listen, we're going to jump in and get started on this show. We love to do a quote of the show. Yours, as you shared with me before we started today, is "Only the paranoid survive." So, A, welcome to the show, and B, tell us why that is your famous or favorite quote.
Well, because look, it is very hard to do any business. And you seem to always be looking over your shoulder, looking to your side. You have to be aware. And what only the paranoid survive means is be aware. Do not be just walking down the street with blinders on and not see it coming, because it can come from anywhere. A problem can come from anywhere. And
Yeah,
so you just have to be prepared.
yeah. Keep your head on a swivel these days.
Correct.
Yeah. I walk down the city, the streets of Chicago, and and trust me when I tell you, I've got my head on a swivel these days. Um, but I think that also is maybe a lead into our conversation today about business development and building a book of business. I think if you're just keeping your head down and billing hours, right, that's not being too aware.
Well, and it's not going to come to you. Look, the deal about business is you're only going to get business and more business if you're looking for more business. There was a book I read years ago called Never Eat Alone.
Hmm.
And Never Eat Alone basically stands for the proposition that nothing's going to happen unless you're out making it happen. If you're out networking, if you're sitting at your desk every day eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, wolfing it down in 10 minutes, yes, that's sufficient for doing your work. But if you don't have work, there's no work to be done. And so there's a balance between uh, working and getting work. And so I call it, in my mind, I call it, there's catching fish and cooking fish. And they're both sides of the business. If you don't catch the fish, there's no fish to cook. If you can't cook the fish, it doesn't matter if you catch the fish, because the fish are going to rot.
Yeah,
You have to do both. You
yeah,
have to be able to catch fish, and then you have to be able to cook fish. And then you have to make sure that when the fish get delivered to the dock, you don't let it sit on the dock too long, because fish will rot.
yeah.
So that's how I look at the law business.
Yeah. And my son and I do a ton of fishing, and he's got a passion about it, and yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And the best thing is my teenager can catch them, he can bring them home, he can slice them up and cook them, and we have a meal, and I just get to sit back and enjoy the spoils. Um,
What do they say? Teach it. What is the quote? Give a man
Teach
a
a man,
fish.
yeah, teach a man to fish.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
teach a son to fish.
Teach a son to fish. I'll tell you, it pays off dividends. So everybody that's listening you guys know John Morgan. He's totally infamous in the legal space and the owner of Morgan and Morgan. Would you do me a solid and just give us a little bit of your background, how you came to be? Because I'm sure you weren't a success from day one, right?
Well, no. No. I was born. I grew up in Kentucky. My dad was kind of a drinker, lost his jobs. We moved to Florida, which was a terrible time for me because I was established and popular. I went from being the most popular boy in the school to eating by myself.
Mm.
And if any of y'all have ever eaten by yourself at lunch, it's the loneliest lunch you'll ever have, especially when you're like, I'm supposed to be popular. I'm not, uh, so I came to Kentucky, from Kentucky to Florida. I got here. The bad luck that I had about leaving Kentucky turned into be good luck, because the Florida had these great schools, these great opportunities, but during my time in Florida, my brother Tim was injured in a diving accident when he was on the job at Disney. He was rendered C6, C7 quadriplegic, and it turned our lives upside down
Yeah.
for all sorts of reasons. You know, being poor and being powerless and helpless is a terrible feeling. And to make matters worse, it happened at Disney. Disney fought him like he was the Taliban. I mean, it was just brutal the way they were combating, him. And so here I was, I was the oldest, and I'm used to taking care of things, but I couldn't take care of this. Our mother had already left the family. She was a drinker too, so we didn't have a mom there. And during that whole process with the fight to get my brother set up, I became enraged, and I didn't know what a personal injury lawyer was. I knew that I always had thought about going to law school because I was shitty in math and English, shitty in math and science. So there was no CPA business for me. There was no doctor, dentist. I mean, it's like I either can be a teacher or a lawyer, but I didn't know what a PI lawyer was. But that bad luck of Tim having that terrible accident became my entire purpose and passion. And so that's all I've ever done. Once I went to law school, I had a lot of job offers, but I only really applied at PI firms because that's what I wanted to do. And that's all I've ever done. So that's how I came to be.
Hey, everybody, I know you're enjoying this interview. To hear more just like this, check out all of the podcasts on our website. Link is in the description below. Yeah, and that's a hell of a story. And, the best stories are the ones where, there's something that influences us in our life and changes our course forever and dictates either how we, what we do for a living or what our passion is and how we spend that time. And so I just, it's tragedy, but I it sounds like you took lemons and made some lemonade. And how do you go from being a lawyer at a firm to an entrepreneur and building something truly special?
Well, look, some lawyers have a good business mind and some don't. I feel like I was a better businessman than a lawyer, for example. And, but I recognized it. I think when I think of myself, it goes like this. I'm not that smart, but I am smart enough to know what I don't know and smart enough to surround myself with people that do. And then I govern by consensus. So that's kind of my personal management style. And I think the most dangerous person in the world is the person who is not capable, but thinks they are capable. And when you find that joker, that's a person that can take you down. So I have been always happy that I understood my limitations and what I could do and what I could not do. And so I surrounded myself with people who could do things way better than me. But then I had some other gifts. I was very good at marketing. I was very good at networking. I was very good at getting business. I lived in union halls. I'm an Irishman, so I can go drink and throw darts and play cards and, stuff that doesn't take that much academics and make it rain. So I thank my lucky stars that I understood who I was and what I could do and what I couldn't do.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like most lawyers are sort of disenfranchised with the idea that they got into the law to do something special and make money, but do something special, help people, and then it's like thrown on them, hey, by the way, you want to have, control and freedom in your career, you need to figure out this marketing and business development stuff. And, they'd rather just sit at their desk and bill hours, which I get, right? But I feel like now more than ever, it's hard to get away with having a career without engaging in the things that you and I maybe find natural and they don't find it natural at all.
Well, look, in every law firm, I have three types of lawyers I'm looking for: finders, minders, and grinders. And some can be all three. Some can be a finder, minder, grinder. Some can be just a finder. There's some people just great. There's a law firm in Alabama, Beasley Allen. They got a guy named Gibson Vance down there. He's the most charming guy in the world, and he's a finder. He can try a case, but he's a finder. And then sometimes you just have to have, grinders who are not, going to go out, are not extroverts, or a little bit shy, but smart as hell. And then you got the minders who were the finders who now manage the grinders.
Mm-hmm.
So all of it thrown together makes a delicious stew. You don't want one stew with just one vegetable, just some carrots. You want it all. You want potatoes, you want onions, you want meat, so finders, minders, grinders. That's how I make up my firm. Each one of them is like a football team. Hey, you're the wide receiver, you're the quarterback, you're the blocker, you're the and so that's kind of how I look at that. They're all very valuable, because without all three of them, we can't get our job done.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I mean, you've been, moving your way up all these years, and now you're sort of at the top of the mountain, but what would you say was your biggest mistake along the way?
Well, it's a mistake that you can't fix at the time, but it was certain people that I brought on as partners that were really nice people, but it was like swimming with a ball and chain around your leg in the Olympics.
Mm.
You have, who your partners are can be really bad.
Yeah.
I wrote a book called You Can't Teach Vision. And I wrote You Can't Teach Hungry, and then I wrote You Can't Teach Vision. On You Can't Teach Vision, I talk about everybody's got these ideas about what they want to do, their vision. Everybody talks about visionaries. Steven Spielberg's a visionary. No, Steven Spielberg is a vision maker. There's a lot of visionaries. Once upon a time, I used to go after church and to Denny's, and my kids would color with crayons, and the crayons were always rolling on the floor. And I was down on the floor picking up crayons, and I used to tell my wife, somebody needs to invent a crayon that doesn't roll. And one day I go into the Denny's and they lay these crayons down. They're triangles.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I'm like, fuck. This is my idea.
Yeah.
This is my idea. Look, you've heard me say it. And she's just looking at me. I was a visionary, but I wasn't a vision maker.
Mm.
And also, to be a vision maker, it's hard because you got a lot of what I call vision blockers trying to tell you why not to do it. There's a lot of vision blockers out there, and the vision blockers can be even people close to you, your spouse. Don't leave your job. Don't take the chance. Don't roll the dice. And the vision blocker can be you. You just freeze up and you get fearful. So the hardest thing to do is to say goodbye to people that you like, but that you realize are dragging you down.
Yeah.
But you never know. You're young and you're starting out. But all of a sudden in the middle of the race, you look over and you're like, these people are not, and so, but it's a mistake that it's impossible to know you're making a mistake at the time, because we don't know who's going to be great and who's going to be good and who's going to be shit.
But sometimes those mistakes have to happen for us to know what not to do, right? It's the mistakes that we learn from that make the difference in our lives and our careers. And that sounds like one that you maybe haven't repeated maybe quite the same way or at all since.
Well, you learn. Let's say when I got rid of the firm was called Morgan, Collin and Gilbert, and when I bought Collin and Gilbert out, I changed the name of the firm to Morgan and Morgan. It's an easier name. It's it flows, and I bought them out back in 2000, and I immediately changed the name, and it was the best thing I ever did, and I didn't have to pay them that much money to get them out. They were trying to get me to close offices in Fort Myers and Jacksonville. And I was like, because they didn't want to pour the money into it. They wanted the money now.
Yeah.
And so they were my vision. They were blocking my vision.
Right.
By the way, those two offices, I mean, they're so damn profitable that those guys wouldn't believe what they became. But bad partners who don't share your vision, don't share your drive, don't share your work ethic. When you got a cancer in your body and you know there's a cancer in your body, you need to cut it out yesterday and you need to radiate it today, because that cancer will metastasize and kill you.
Well, and hey, John, here's one that you may or may not have heard of before, but no ship sinks quite like a partnership.
I haven't heard it, but it's true.
Yeah.
And they're messy.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're very messy. Look, here's the thing. All of us, me especially, we all think we're more than we are by a lot. So we all think we're bringing so much more to the table than we are. What we find out when people leave, even great people, we find out, if you want another quote for your show, that graveyards are full of irreplaceable people. People who we thought, oh my God, how are we going to go without this person? Well, guess what? Steve Jobs died. And guess what? Apple thrived. Walt Disney died. And Disney grew. And so you can't be scared of that change. And the sooner you make the change, years ago, and so you say, when do I do it? You know when it's time. You know when it's bad. You know, I tell people in my book, You Can't Teach Hunger, I got a chapter called Dog Shit. And I said, hey, have you ever been walking out in the woods and you step on something, your foot kind of slides, and you're like, did I step in dog shit? You're like, no. And you don't want to step in dog shit because dog shit's a big mess. And you say, no, that was some pine needles. That was some leaves. You get to the car. Yeah, it couldn't have been dog shit. You get in the car and you smell.
Yeah.
You know that smell?
Everyone knows that smell.
We all know that smell.
Yeah.
And so now you're in the car and you're like, you don't want it to be, but you're like, yeah. And the moral of the story is, if you smell dog shit, there's dog shit. That goes to partnership. If you find a partner shit that's got, and you smell it, the sooner you do it, the better, because you're just going to track it in the house.
Yeah.
Walk it all over. Once upon a time, they fired Ron Zook, the coach of Florida Gators, mid-season. And the athletic director said something that stuck with me, which was, whatever you know is going to eventually have to be done, do it today.
Yeah.
Don't wait.
It's not going to get better.
It's not going to get better. The dog shit is just going to be tracked more and more.
Yeah,
you got to stop. You got to take off the shoe. You got to rinse it off. You got to take it home, spray it down, but you got to excise the cancer. And the hardest thing is because it's a partnership. And partnerships usually fail the same reason that bands fail. Because John Lennon thought he was the king and Paul McCartney thought he was the one, and they both thought they were the Beatles, and then they split. If you look at rock and roll bands, there's usually Simon and Garfunkel. Who was the alpha? Simon was the alpha, Garfunkel. And they start resenting, Lionel Richie and the Commodores. He was the Commodores. What happened to the Commodores when Lionel Richie left? Not much. What happened to Lionel Richie? So it's the same in business, and it's like a band. But, you're Mick Jagger. You are the Rolling Stones. Yes, we like Ronnie Wood. Yes, we like Charlie Waters. But Mick Jagger is the Rolling Stones. Keith Richards sort of is too. But that ego. But the truth is, somebody really is writing the songs. Mm. And then that person writing the songs and singing the songs starts to resent the bandmates making the same money as him. It's not fair, or her. Yeah. So but partnerships are some of the biggest mistakes I've made, but also some of the greatest things I've ever done. I mean, some of these people that are my partners, Today, I couldn't even do this without them, but
Yeah.
not by close.
Yeah, it takes a village, and I want to get into sort of another piece of this whole thing, which is, I don't know another attorney or firm that has scaled the way that you've scaled, and I know that there's a lot of moving parts that goes into that. What are some of the things that allowed you to begin that scaling process outside of shedding, some bad partners or partners that didn't have the vision? And take us through that, because that's a story that needs to be told, and I'd love to have you share it on my show.
Well, what I decided to do was uh, I brought a guy in that was a very very bright guy to try to implement my vision. And one of the things that I worried about was that we you got all these lawyers, they're all kind of doing what they want, not what we want. Who knows what's going on in every office and every law firm in America? I wanted it to be done my way, the right way, every day. And so the first thing we did, and I was highly skeptical, but this guy turned out to be a genius. We built our own software called Litify. Uh, it was so successful, we started selling it to other people. We were bought out. We got bought out. 60% of our company was bought out by a company called Besmer at a $330 million valuation.
Mm.
But Litify gave me the platform to do what I wanted to do, which was to see everything. I wanted to be transparent and automated. And this software gives us that opportunity. So now we can manage, we can see what's going on inside of and we have operational managers who are overseeing lawyers to make sure all these things are happening. We're not relying on just the lawyer to do it. We have somebody watching the lawyer, and they get reports every single week. And so that was the big deal. That was the seismic shift that allowed us to manage at a granular level, hundreds of thousands of cases a year.
It's like today's Ford model, right? Like everything needs to be done a certain way to get a certain outcome and a certain result. Everybody's
Right.
singing the same song.
Exactly. Everybody has to do it my way. You don't just, if you got a case where, there's been an injury at a place of business, you got 3 days to get witness statements, pictures. And if you don't, the flag goes up. So we built our own risk management type of practice inside of Litify. And that has, in my mind, enabled us to move 4x in the size of our average settlement.
Yeah. Wow. And
So
then, yeah, I mean, there's a bit, but there's the software and the accountability and all that. What are some other factors that have allowed you to scale out and be successful doing it?
well, the first thing you got to remember, since you like these phrases like only the paranoid survive, so you're right.
I do. I do.
Here's another one for you then, since you're a bit. And by the way, most of everything I say, I've heard from somewhere else. It's not like I'm Aristotle making this shit up. I'm stealing from Aristotle.
Hey, we steal, we borrow, we use. It's all good.
Right. So I'm not taking credit for these. Uh, when everyone's accountable, no one's accountable. And so the first time I heard that, I'm like, yeah, yeah. So what I've done is I make sure that at every part of our business, there is a person, a leader who is accountable. That when shit hits the fan, we don't have to go, who was supposed to renew our workers' comp insurance? We know who that is. That person in my firm is a guy named Will Lewis. So every city has a managing partner who has ownership in the firm. They have a big say in what happens, and they're accountable for a lot of things. So by assigning accountability to partners and managers throughout the system, it enables us to make sure that the trains run on time.
But everybody's again in line, singing the same song, following your system, and doing things the way that should be done, and then accountable to that.
Right. And every day, Every day I have dashboards that you can't imagine. Every day, everybody's fees for that day go in. It's tabulated. It shows where they are for the year. It shows where they're trending for the year. Are they going to be up? Are they going to be down? We circulate it out to all the lawyers. It's a very, I manage by not managing. I manage by just going, here's the numbers. Here's number one. Here's number 1,000. And so we these dashboards, these leaderboards are very effective because nobody wants to be last and everybody wants to be first. And it also takes care of a lot of people who just realize they're not up for this job. And I tell people all the time, the numbers don't lie. At the end of the day, the numbers do not lie. And so that's how I manage, to make as many people accountable for as many different, whatever I can think of. I want to have a person in charge. Your insurance, your tech, your ethics. We have a general counsel that handles all of our ethics issues. I want to have one person who, when shit hits the fan, to go, what happened?
All right, John, I've got one last question before we get to our game-changing book. And it's, all right, we are now in a new phase. We've got AI. We've got all kinds of cool legal tech and AI coming onto the scene. How are you seeing that transition, either other law firms to be more competitive, or how are you going to utilize it within your system? What are you seeing happening for the next couple of years with all this amazing new AI coming out? If you want to check out more about what Fretzin does every day to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker, please check out our services page on our website. Just go to the website, check it out. I know you'll enjoy it. Thanks.
Well, first of all, you got to remember, like anything, when anything is amazing and new, there's a gold rush.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a gold rush. What do we know the most about gold rushes? There's a lot of fool's gold. AI reminds me of the marijuana business. Everybody wanted to be in marijuana. Everybody wanted to be in marijuana. Everybody's racing to marijuana. And most of it was fool's gold. Everybody had this, idea, oh, I'm in a pot shop and I'm making money, I'm getting high, and isn't it great? It didn't work for most of the people. AI is going to be something great, but I'm using it slowly. We had a matter the other day, which was embarrassing because one of our lawyers relied on AI for some cases that didn't exist. And we had a trial in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I had to send my son out to apologize for citing these cases. So AI gave us bad information. It was wrong.
Okay.
But my lawyer relied on AI, but didn't do the double checking that Walmart did. And when Walmart comes back and goes, this is all bullshit.
Okay.
When people call me and say, what are you going to do? I said, when you're wrong, there's only one thing to do. Fess up.
Yeah.
Fess up. Apologize. I told my son, I said, get on the plane, fly to Cheyenne, wear knee pads, and apologize to that federal judge.
Yeah.
And the judge was, once you do that, the judge was like, oh, okay. But AI got us in trouble.
Yeah.
AI is going to be unbelievable, obviously.
I mean, the angle I was going for, John, like demand letters and like taking things that take a tremendous amount of time to get documents together, and demand letters, invoice, all the different pieces that go into the puzzle of a case.
Well, we're a little bit further ahead than that. I mean, we've got our own little version of AI to cut and paste demand letters.
Yep.
And look, demand letters are usually bullshit. I mean,
I was using that as an example, but again, it's how much can be automated?
A lot's going to be automated. I mean, it's going to be bigger than what Google is. I mean, look, think about your life without Google. Well, it's going to be think of your life without. I mean, look, I practiced law without a cell phone. I'm that old. I was a lawyer without a cell phone.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was a lawyer without a computer. I was a lawyer without a laptop. I was a lawyer without Google. I was a lawyer without AI, and now I have it. So it's going to be incredible but we have to be careful with anything new. I'm kind of letting other people beta test it. I mean, I've already done my deal with Litify. And by the way, a lot of the AI stuff that's going on for me is happening inside of the Litify that Besmer has now. And so I'll be relying on smarter people to make me better. But I'm doing it with a lot of trepidation, because it's like when you start rushing in the gold rush out west.
Yeah.
And you don't really know what, because everybody it's like the, I don't know if you're familiar with the tulip bulbs story from Holland years ago, but there was these tulip bulbs and everybody started buying tulip bulbs, and the tulip bulbs got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And there was they were so expensive, and all of a sudden one day it just crashed. And everybody was like, why were people buying these tulip bulbs? There was no explanation.
Yeah.
The explanation I have is, once when I was a little boy, I used to go to my uncle's farm in Kentucky, and I'd sit there in the field and I'd look in the field up above and I'd see the cows. And then I'd see one cow start running. And then I'd see another cow start running behind that cow. And then before I knew it, there was a stampede and the cows were running to the top of the field. And then they would get there and they'd kind of look at each other and like, why the fuck were we running?
Who was responsible for this?
And they were running because the one cow started running.
Yeah,
so they just started running. Well, listen, at the end of the day, we're a lot like the sheep and the cows. And that's what's happening with AI. People are running and the rest of the herd starts to run. I'm going to stand back and let everybody run to the top of the field. I'm going to let it kind of thin out. Then I'm going to see what's going on at the top of the field. And if it works at the top of the field, I'm going to go up and take the best, but not the worst. Yeah. And there's going to be a lot more losers in AI than winners.
Yeah. Well, I love it, man. So great having you on the show. Let's take a minute to just talk about your favorite book, is Black Swan. Tell us briefly about that.
Black Swan is a book that stands for the proposition that in life, we don't know what's going to happen. Once upon a time, people used to say swans are white. What color are swans? White. What color are swans? White. Everybody said swans were white. Why? Because that's all people had ever seen was a white swan. One day on a lake, there was a black swan. And they're like, what is that? They go, that's a black swan. That's not a black swan. Why? Black swans don't exist. Why don't they? Because they're white. Well, there's one there.
Yeah.
And so what happened in Black Swan is there are events that happen in our life that goes back to only the paranoid survive that we might not see coming. Years ago, the Mirage Hotel had, you should never have lose money in a casino. They had Siegfried and Roy. But one year they lost terribly because they had two Black Swan events. One, a bookkeeper made a mistake on taxes and cost them millions and millions of dollars. But the big black swan for them was the tiger ate Roy. Mm. And when the tiger ate Roy, nobody came to the show because there was no show. And it went like this. That's a black swan event. Could you ever have really seen that coming? No. But it doesn't matter what the event's going to be. A black swan event's coming. It happened in 2008. It happened with the pandemic. It can happen. It's in my life. It happened at 9/11. You have these black swan events that you really may not even see coming. But what the proposition stands for is this, and what the answer is this: even though you don't see it coming, be prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared for what it is. How do you get prepared? There's a lot of ways. I've got inside of my firm three layers of levers. I call them black swan levers that I'm ready to pull in the case of emergency. All the way, I spend like $350 million a year in advertising. That's a lever I can pull if I have to. So I am prepared with my black swan levers for the black swan event. When the pandemic hit, I was pulling pulling black lever swans like crazy because we didn't know.
John, I don't think law firms are doing that. I don't think law firms are prepared for another recession. I don't think law firms are prepared like you are for those black swan events. And I know this from, working with a lot of managing partners and lawyers around the world. And I don't know what's going to happen in the world. And if things go, crazy like we think they might, I think there's going to be a lot of people completely, left behind and unprepared for that, which is scary.
And part of the preparation for me has been, look, I always, on my money, I always say my A side is my investment money. My B side is my money that I never touch. I want my B side to be enough money that if the worst happens, which is I have no law firms, that my life doesn't change.
Yeah.
That's called being prepared.
Yeah.
So in your own work, in your own business, you got to start building that nest egg for that black swan moment where it could be the last moment.
Yeah.
But I don't think people do. I think most people walk around in life as lawyers hoping to catch lightning in a bottle. And what I say to people, another one of my phrases, this is my own, hope is not a plan. Hope is hope. Hope is not a plan. Without a plan, you have no hope.
Yeah. It's so in line with what this show is all about and what we talk about and harp about and try to get that message across to lawyers, about preparation for whether it's having your own book or, leaning into marketing and getting active in your career and not just letting it roll by you. John, this has been such an absolute pleasure. I want to take a moment to just thank our sponsors, the Law Her Podcast and Rankings.io and PIMCon coming up in October. John, if people want to get in touch with Morgan & Morgan, they want to send work your way, they want to learn more about you, any particular website or digits you want to share?
They can email me at Morgan at forthepeople.com. Morgan at forthepeople.com.
Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for celebrating and sharing your time and being on the 500th show of Be That Lawyer. This has been absolutely fantastic, and I just appreciate you, and glad I get to meet you. It's wonderful too.
Well, here's the way there's another book I want to give people to read. It's called Give and Take. Okay.
Yep.
And it's about people who give and people who take. The punchline of the book at the end is the people who give are the people who get the most in return. The people who take don't get shit. When you invited me to do this, and I didn't know you, but I saw this was your 500th show, I thought, I can give him something. A half hour is not much to give him. I want you to be successful. Hopefully this helps, your business. And so, because it was your 500th show, I thought about the book Give and Take. I said, you know what? I'm going to give my new friend from Chicago a little love.
Wow, you did that in spades, my friend, and I just can't thank you enough. And I'm hoping to continue to get to know you better as time goes on, and we'll promote the junk out of this when it comes out, and just enjoy your time in Hawaii, and maybe you'll come to Chicago sometime, or I'll come out and we'll get to visit sometime. I'll take you out for a steak.
Love it.
Take you fishing. All right. Thank you, John. And thank you, everybody, for hanging out with John and I today on the 500th show. If you haven't heard already, we mentioned it 5 times. Be That Lawyer, helping you always to be confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Be well. We'll talk again soon.